So there is a major update in the UK with regard to pensions. You may have heard of the Mansion House Accord, at least if you've been watching TV and you've seen Rachel Reeves on it, you'll have seen her talking about it because, to be fair, it is quite a major big deal. Doubtless she's taking the credit for it, and that might be credit due, but whether it really works or not, we'll have to wait and see. But let's look at this for a moment, because this is obviously surrounding pensions, if you weren't familiar. And you may not have paid any attention to your pension at all, whether you're in the UK or the United States. And I suspect that if you're in the United States or even somewhere else, this may well affect you as well, because this is, as I say, quite a major deal for the UK. So please do subscribe to the channel. This is my money and wealth channel. If you're wondering why I'm talking about money instead of law, I'm on my money/wealth building channel. Please do subscribe here. Little bit about me before I go further ahead. Most of you know me as a barrister from my main channel, Black Belt Barrister, but I'm not just a barrister, and I wasn't always just a barrister. I've always been in business. And one thing my grandfather told me when I was very, very young is don't trust anybody, particularly the government, and don't rely on anybody for your money, and particularly the government. And what he was talking about is don't rely on the government for your pension. And I think nothing could be truer. So when you look at the long term, and a lot of people don't do this, with respect, a lot of people don't do this. They don't look at the long term and prepare for the future, prepare for their pension and so on. It's never really too late, although I suppose technically it can get too late, but it's never too late to start if you haven't started. So you really ought to get started, and you can catch up. I've known people catch up very quickly in a very short space of time by sorting out their pension with sensible advice. One of the best ways, I'll jump ahead to one of my action points here, but one of the best ways you can do that is avoiding lots of fees, because they chew into any performance of pensions and investments that you make, but more about that a bit later. Many people lose out because of the fees, and they do it as a set and forget. They pay somebody, they assume that it's done, they assume they take care of it, they assume it's the best thing to do because they want to do something, they want to invest, they know they need to invest in their pension and otherwise, and so because they either don't know how to do it, scared of doing it, or just don't want to do it, they pay someone to do it, but they lose a lot of money in doing that as well. So let's take a look what this Mansion House Accord is. Now, as I say, it's no small ambition. So they are looking at capital for private markets in the UK, £800 billion worth or so by 2030, with 17 major pension providers representing about 90% of active pension savers to commit at least 10% of their defined contributions to private assets, with half of those going to UK firms. And just on a side tangent for a moment, thinking about the recent growth, because there has been a smidgen of growth, which is just about outstripping inflation. A lot of people are chalking that up to tech sales, panic exports because of Donald Trump's tariffs and so on, but a lot of it attributable to the tech markets and such things. So if you now think of these pension funds investing in UK companies, particularly startups with ambitious growth potential, and think companies like Neuralink, Starlink, the sort of Elon Musk-esque type tech companies that might have a massive growth potential in the UK, and having a defined amount of money invested in those companies does spark quite a bit of potential. Whilst there is a high growth opportunity which could run for a very long time, as we all know, execution is key. For example, if you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to get fit, then just planning to do those things and hoping to do those things and desperately wanting to do those things is not going to get you fit or healthy. Actually getting out and even going for a walk. I joke sometimes that getting fit and healthy is literally a walk in the park, because many studies have proven that walking is one of the best ways of getting fit, one of the best ways of keeping weight off long term. I started talking about that on my Black Belt Secrets channel, where that's just sort of jumped all over the place at the moment. So I wanted a bit of a variety channel. I seem to have got it. That's my Black Belt Secrets channel. Subscribe to that below. So as I say, execution is key. So these pension fund managers are typically risk averse by nature, generally speaking. And whilst they might be looking to invest in these private markets and have some political pressures to do so, and obviously the government wants to turn things around. Everybody really wants things to turn around, and people are looking to their pensions. I'll come back to some action points for you in just a moment. I think these companies, albeit they've signed this accord, are going to be relatively risk averse in what companies they look at, which may well spark one or two massive opportunities for growth, but ultimately may stagnate as well. So on the one hand, we have a massive opportunity for investment right now, because this was literally just 2 days ago that 17 companies signed this accord. signalling a massive intention to invest huge amounts of money in the UK over the next few years, which will affect the UK and it will affect the United States as well. Because while a lot of UK citizens invest in US stocks, it does open up the opportunity for US citizens to invest in UK stocks. And so this may well change things around a little bit. But now just talking about pensions in general and why this is such an opportunity, because millions of people in both the UK and the US have had stagnant pensions for many, many years, decades in fact, despite many different markets growing and booming and doing very well. But many people, I suggest you may be among them, haven't reviewed pensions for 5, 10, 15 or even 20 years, and missing out on these massive market gains because you've just set it and forgotten about it and someone else is running it for you. All the while you might be paying them for poor performance. And statistics show that over half of private pensions in both the United States and the United Kingdom have failed to beat inflation over the past decade. The direct source for this is the FCA Retirement Income Market data of 2023. And not only that, a lot of them have high fees. Now, I've spoken to various advisors in inverted commas over the years who've quoted their fees, some as high as 2 to 3% and so on, particularly when they package things together and there's estates involved, which include properties and other accounts and other assets and things of that nature. They can really stack up these fees, and I found them to be quite ridiculous. So taking an example directly from Alpesh Patel, I'll credit him because it's a great example. If you take $100,000 or £100,000 at a 3% net growth over 20 years, that would be $180,000. Whereas at a 7% net growth, bearing in mind the fees, remember, this would equate to around $360,000, which is a $200,000 difference, dollars or pounds, without doing anything at all. Alpesh talks about some of the reasons for underperformance, and they are relatively straightforward. One of the reasons is they might be outdated. You might have done it many years ago in the 80s or between the 80s and the 2000s, and they might have had higher fees, they might have had limited fund options, they might have just been invested and forgotten, and therefore been neglected over a long period of time. You might be neglecting your SIP, or in the United States, your 401k with a poor diversification or some sort of cash drag, so that it's dragging down the performance of the overall portfolio. The same might apply for outdated investments, legacy stocks, or generally not taking advantage of modern performance of modern stocks, modern tech companies, and things that might have an exponential growth. But if you don't have that range, you don't benefit from any of that growth. So what are the action points when you walk away from this video? Well, hopefully, first of all, you subscribe to the channel for more information like this. But secondly, along the lines of what I would advise clients in a legal scenario absolutely applies here. The absolute worst thing you can do in any scenario is just ignore the thing. Even if you are completely in the right, it's still better to respond in one way or another. There are different ways of responding, but it is better to respond one way or the other. But in this scenario, you are essentially ignoring the problem if you have a pension or you don't have a pension, because if you have a pension that you've never looked at or haven't looked at it since, then it's probably underperforming, because most of them are, and it's almost certainly not doing as well as it could do if you even took some active steps with it and eliminated the fees along the line. This is not to say that you will absolutely do a better job than someone advising you, but at the very least you will save those fees if they are charging 1, 2 or 3% for the advice and managing the portfolio, and even that can do you a little bit better than you are already. So the first thing you should absolutely do is to check, because if you are ignoring these things, then you are ignoring the opportunity and neglecting what you already have, or neglecting the opportunity, so you've got the opportunity cost. If you're in the UK, you can go to gov.uk to find My Pension, just search on the Gov website. In the US, there are similar services available to search for your pensions there. Then you should absolutely look and evaluate it, and then consider getting some proper expert advice if it's not meeting market expectations, or at the very least, if it's even failing to beat inflation over the last few years. And please, whatever you do, don't be afraid to ask somebody about the fees, about the costs, what they are doing for those fees and costs, because over the years I have seen many people charging fees when they are not really doing anything at all. It's a little bit like, and I hate to bring it up because it's kind of grim, but it's a little bit like funeral services when they charge you thousands of pounds for what actually would only cost a few £100s to arrange. And when you quiz them, as I have done in the past, so I speak from experience, when you quiz them about what is this £4,000 for, they sort of stumble as though they've never been asked that question before and sort of say, well, we are on the end of the phone if ever you want to call us over the next few days. To which I say, well, why would I want to call you over the next few days? And why would I want to do that to the value of £4,000? So I speak from experience here. But Those sort of things you absolutely should question, and really question where the money goes, what it's for, what they are doing. Obviously, if something doesn't seem right, you might be able to stop paying it. Obviously, you probably should seek advice first, but you might be able to stop paying it. And at the very least, you might allege breach of contract if they are just not doing their job with reasonable skill and care, is the phrase in England and Wales. And you have a similar phrase in the United States. Somebody should do a proper job in what they're doing, otherwise they'll be in breach of contract. It's both in legislation and it's just an implied term to any contract. If someone's doing a job, if someone comes to do a job for you at your house, there's an implied term there that they can actually do the job and that they can do it reasonably well. Not just turn up, do a bad job and still charge you for it. So the same should be true with this. But my experience here with people that I've spoken to over the years, both if you don't know, I used to be a mortgage professional advising people on mortgages and that sort of thing, which obviously takes a great deep dive into their affordability. Those things have changed a great deal over the years, and I'm talking many, many years ago, but the fundamental principles are the same. And over the years, during those years and in recent years as a barrister looking at clients who've had these sort of problems, what we often find is people are just not doing their job properly, but the person who they're doing the job for is not really paying attention. So if that applies to you, and with great respect to you, I come trying to help, if that applies to you, then I strongly suggest that you look at what's going on rather than just ignore it, because if you've never looked at it or you've set it years ago and never looked at it since, it's probably time you look at it again. Just like the child trust funds that I know that many people had from the government and have never even looked at. They don't even know where it is. They don't know where to log in to look at it or anything else. And as it was very quick to pull up, I thought I would show you in case you've never even thought about it. A child trust fund was a long-term tax-free savings account set up for children born between the 1st of September 2002 and the 2nd of January 2011. I know many people with children born during that period and have never even thought about it, let alone looked into it. If you think you might have one and you've never looked at it, now's your chance to go and find it, because you can transfer it to a junior ISA, although you can't hold both at the same time. But I know many people that have transferred the Child Trust Fund to a junior ISA, and they keep putting money in it that way, which obviously can run until they're 18 and have those tax benefits. So I hope you found this a useful explanation as to what's happening with the pensions just recently, and perhaps a wake-up call to some of you if you've never looked at it. This is one of the best things you can do immediately that won't take you much effort at all if you've never looked at it. So please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will do my level best to explain lots of different things to you and help you create wealth. And with that, I thank you for watching.